Welcome to Receiving Noor weekly Quran study. We are continuing to study Surah 14, and this is our fifth part. And we had stopped at verse 12, and we will inshallah continue from there. Is there anybody who wants to share anything before we get started? Okay, then I will turn to Dr. Yamina to lead us in tonight's session. As usual, you're welcome to chime in with your questions and thoughtful comments during the session, or if it can wait till the end, then you can share them at the end. Bismillah, may it be a blessed session, inshallah. Sister Yamina, please. Jazakallah khair.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم إياك نعبد ولك نصلي ونسجد وإليك نسعى ونحفظ نرجو رحمتك ونخشى عذابك إن عذابك بالكافرين ملحق اللهم إنا نستعينك ونستغفرك ونثني عليك الخير ولا نكفرك ونؤمن بك ونخضع لك ونخلع من يكفرك آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So last week we reflected on the significance of tawakkul and how it is a very important aspect of our surrender to God, our worshiping God alone. And the last two ayat were ayah 11 and 12 of this surah, Surah Ibrahim, which is Surah 14. So in ayah 11, we were told the messengers told them, true, we are nothing but mortal people, human beings like yourselves. This is the objection that the disbelievers had was not about the content of the message, the truth of the message, but they said, yeah, but you are only human beings like us. And so the messengers told them, it is true, we are human beings like yourselves, but God bestows his favor upon whomever he wills of his servants. With whole, it is not within our power to bring you an evidence of our mission unless it be by God's leave. It's not under our control. It is in God that all believers must place their trust, must make tawakkul. So first they say it is on to وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكِّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. And then in ayah 12, we are told, and how could we not, so it is still the messengers speaking to their people, and how could we not place our trust in God? وَمَا لَنَا أَنْ لَا نَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, seeing that it is he who has shown us the path which we are to follow. Hence, we shall certainly bear with patience whatever hurt you may do or inflict upon us. For all who have trust must place their trust in God. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. So the two last ayat were about tawakkul, and we talked about that last week. We will see today how and why practicing tawakkul and relying on God alone is so important. So far, we've seen how the messengers brought to the people clear guidance, which is light, taking them out of darkness and into the light, and clear evidences from their Rabb. Yet, some people chose to deny the truth and ignore all the blessings and remain ungrateful, and we made the connection between disbelief and ingratitude, kufr. And they made baseless excuses about not being convinced, like, for instance, focusing on the messengers themselves when the message is about God, as the messengers pointed to them or point to them in this surah. And they made excuses saying that the messengers, are only human beings. And we talked about their false reasoning there. And we saw how clearly they cannot be convinced because they don't want to be convinced, because they are stuck in their obstinacy not to surrender to their Rabb. And so they are looking for excuses to remain in darkness. And now that their excuses are exposed, if you want, and their intention is exposed, they are openly aggressive and hostile. And so in Ayah 13, they say, we told them, those who disbelieved said to their messengers, we shall most certainly expel you out of our land unless you return to our ways. Then their sustainer, the Rabb, inspired to them, meaning to the messengers, most certainly we shall destroy the transgressors. وقال الذين كفروا لرسلهم لنخرجنكم من أرضنا أو لتعودن في ملتنا فأوحى إليهم ربهم لنهلكن الظالمين. And here, Millah, our ways, some translated it as our religion, but it's more like a community, usually religious or confessional community, a creed, a denomination. But it's about values and way of life as well. So it's not religion as we think about it. The person may not be following a religion per se. So now they are openly aggressive because they have no more excuse. They say, you stop it or we will expel you. You go back, not only you stop it, but you have to go back to, you live like us or we will expel you. Meaning that after the messengers demonstrated the evidences, after they demonstrated also their sound way of reasoning, because they reasoned with them, it was not, they listened to them, they reasoned with them, they offered their people clear evidences to the truth of their message, and all of this were discussed in the previous verses. These obstinate people, the disbelievers, threatened to drive the messengers out of their land unless they return to the people's way of life and accept their values and worship their idols. And so these mindless and arrogant people, they are described before and after also as arrogant people and mindless people. You can see they say, we'll expel you, the ayah says, and those who disbelieve said to the messenger, we shall most certainly expel you out from our land. So there are indication and clues here. They consider the land as their own land, meaning it's my land, I do whatever I want with it. Exactly as they consider their lives as it's my life, I do whatever I want with it. So if it's their land, they can do whatever they want with it, and they can expel whoever they want or whoever they don't like or don't agree with. And in the area, it's a category, but as we always say, these people out there, everyone, in each one of us, we have that potential. And that potential can be totally flourished and we become that person. Or it can be in some situations at different degrees, it shows up. And so we can only have a balanced attitude towards this stand. I won't call it only these people because it's more like an attitude, a stand, because people are not black and white. Attitudes maybe, but people may differ. They take an attitude and retract and get back to it, and there are also degrees in standing in that attitude, taking that stance. But we can only deal with it in the outer world when we or to the extent that we become aware of it inside of us and take care of it inside of us, so that we have firmness and dignity and stand our ground, but with compassion and with justice, not with injustice and aggression. Because if we act with aggression, we become the one we were taking a stand against, and we become indistinguishable. So there is a fine line there, and that balance is when we read the message first for myself. Each one of us will read it for himself, and to that extent we will be able to help each other and bring that light into the world, inshallah. So these mindless people, they imagine that the land is theirs, when we have been told before that it is God who creates the heavens and the earth, and therefore all the blessings therein belong to God alone. The land and everything within it belongs to God alone. And so the land is a gift entrusted to us for an appointed time only. And in the end, everyone will be accountable for their deeds, as we are reminded again and again in the Quran. So no wonder the disbelievers are not grateful to their Rabb, because they regard the land and everything else as theirs. They are, how do you call it? How do you say usurpers? They usurp what does not belong to them. And that's why disbelief and ingratitude are connected, and they come together. It's one package. But right after this threat, so they are threatening the messengers, God reassures his messengers and those who follow them, revealing to them that the tyrants, the aggressors, will perish, and therefore there is no need to be scared. The ayah says, then their Rabb, their sustainer, inspired to them, meaning the messengers and their followers, most certainly we shall destroy the transgressors. So sooner or later, meaning in this world or in the next, and the next world is very close, kullu atin qarib, whether it's in 10 years or 100 years, for each one of us, the end is when we leave this world. So everyone will be held accountable. And the verse ends with, most certainly we shall destroy the transgressors. So there is this reminder that do not worry. They may threaten you, but their end is destruction and ruin and doom. And here tawakkul comes again. Tawakkul is the shield of the believer, because what this ayah is telling me only will speak to me or will heal my fear of being expelled only if I have tawakkul, if I rely on God alone. Otherwise, it is scary if you are alone, and all, like for the prophets, they didn't have many followers, especially in the beginnings, most of them, and they had all these people around them threatening them. So tawakkul is that shield, the shield of the believer in the face of oppression and transgression. When we rely on God alone, knowing that everything is in God's hand, knowing that everything is in his control, then we can focus on our responsibility instead of focusing on what will the others do. And we can focus on our responsibility without fear of the oppression, fear of the oppressors. Because fear leads to either surrendering to oppression and losing one's dignity, like, how do you call it, villa? bowing down before the oppressor in fear, or fear can also lead to rage, to anger. And when there is anger, there is no balance. We start participating in the aggression and we become aggressors, even if we are small aggressors. It becomes something going on between the aggressor and the victim. But when we have tawakkul ala Allah, when we rely on God, what's happening is between me and God. The other person is, I see him as part of the divine will and the divine plan. So the believers follow the middle way, ummatun wasata. The middle way is the balanced way. We stand our ground with dignity in justice for the sake of bringing peace. Therefore, we act in equity, not in transgression. And that balance is not easy to keep, but we will get closer to the balance the more we make tawakkul ala Allah, rely on God alone, because we know that everything is in His hand. And when we believe in God, we also believe in akhirah. We know that this world is temporary. There is no way we can believe in God while living in ghafla and thinking that this world is forever. So the believer is aware, is conscious, is mindful that the world is temporary, and we are not here to amass power and dominion. Dominion belongs to God alone. And so everything and everyone else is transient, is ephemeral, is passing. And if we can't do anything to relieve the oppression, you try to do something with your hand, as we are told in the hadith. If not with your word, with your tongue, your right, you say it. If you can't, if there is repression and oppression, then in your heart. And in any case, even when they are doing something, they bear it with patience because they know that God is in control. So that patience also, remember, came up before, and it came in the context of tawakkul as well. And we know in Surah Al-A'raf, Surah 7, in Ayah 128, Musa alayhi salam, when he talks to his people, he says to them, turn unto God for help. Ista'inu billahi wasbiru. Inna al-arda lillahi yurithuha man yasha min ibadihi wal aqibatu lil muttaqin. Turn unto God for help and have patience wasbiru. Truly, all the earth belongs to God. He gives it as an heritage, whether He wills, in ibadihi, of His servants, of His worshippers. And the future, the destiny, belongs to the God conscious. And that's what we see in the next ayah, in ayah 14, where we are told, وَلَنُسْكِنَنَّكُمُ الْأَرْضَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامِ وَخَافَ وَعِيدٍ. And most certainly, so we were told that the transgressors will be, God says, most certainly we shall destroy the transgressors. We will come back to this destroying the transgressors and why it is rahmah. And most certainly we shall settle you in the land after them. This is for all who stand in awe of my presence and stand in awe of my warning. And so this ayah 14 implies a divine promise. God is promising that the truth and divine guidance brought by the messengers will prevail and outlive the disbelievers, or the transgressors. Meaning the truth will prevail while the oppressors and oppression will perish. And they're told also, most certainly we shall settle you in the land after them. And this can be understood in two ways. It can be understood God will settle the messengers and their followers in this life, or the next. And of course, the next one is more important because that is the permanent one. And how do we know this? It's because in the Quran, the same expression, نورثكم الأرض, or here لنسكننكم الأرض, is used in both contexts, in the context of here in this world and in the context of when the believers are entering paradise. For instance, they say, Alhamdulillah, all praise be to God, who has made his promise to us come true and has bestowed on us this bliss, let's say, so that we may dwell in paradise. وَأَوْرَثَنَا الْأَرْضَ, actually, and he bestows upon us, or made us inherit the earth or the land, because earth means both in Arabic, the land or the earth, so that we may dwell in paradise. And how excellent a reward this is for those who worked. فَنِعْمَ أَجْرُ الْعَامِلِينَ. But we also know in Surah Al-Ahzab, that was in Surah Zumar 13, Surah 39, Ayah 74. In Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah 33, Ayah 27, we are told, and he made you, meaning the believers, the follower of Muhammad ﷺ, we made you, God is saying, and he made you heirs to their lands and their houses and their goods. So here it's clearly, he made the believers the heirs of these people here in the world, because it says to their lands and their houses and their goods, and they here are your oppressors. And he promised you lands on which you have never yet set foot, for God has indeed the power to will anything. وَأَوْرَثَكُمْ أَرْضَهُمْ وَدِيَارَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ وَأَرْضًا لَمْ تطؤوها وكان الله على كل شيء قدير. So it means both. And in Surah Al-A'raf, Surah 7, this concept comes also in connection with the miraculous liberation of the people of Musa alayhi salam. And it's interesting because we were given the example of the people of Moses. And in Surah Al-A'raf, we see something happening very similar to this. So in Surah 7, Ayat 136, we are told, and so we inflicted our retribution on them and caused them to drown in the sea, the people of Pharaoh, because they had given the lie to our ayat and had been heedless of them. وَكَانُوا عَنْهَا كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَكَانُوا عَنْهَا غَافِلِينَ. And in 137, we are told, whereas unto the people who had been deemed utterly low, we gave as their heritage the eastern and western part of the land that we had blessed. And thus your Rabb, your sustainers, good promise unto the children of Israel was fulfilled in result of their patience in adversity. Whereas we utterly destroyed all that Pharaoh and his people had done and all they had built. And it's interesting because here the people of Moses have been given the land as they were promised. But as you will see in Surah Ibrahim or in other places, the moment they do not follow the path of Moses, it does not apply to them anymore. So they become the aggressors. So it's not about God promises you something, whatever you do. It is like a law, just like there is the law of gravity. When you throw something, it's going to fall according to a certain speed. There are other unseen laws of moral laws, let's say, or spiritual laws. Whoever acts with transgression, that will lead to destruction, to his doom, as we will see in more detail. And whoever follows the path of the prophets, which is the path of God, then he is brought to the light, from darkness into the light, and he will inherit the land or the earth, whether in this world or in the next. But eventually, that's how things will work. But it's not, it doesn't work with labels. You can't label someone for whatever the person does. It always applies to them. It's more about what we do and how we act and who we are right here and now. And that's why following the path of the messengers is an intentional choice that we keep choosing, we keep renewing our intention. جددوا إيمانكم بلا إله إلا الله.
Sister Yamina,
Yes.
if I can add something here or ask a question also. So the messengers of God and those who follow, when they are oppressed and everything looks bleak, there is this divine promise given to them, according to the revelation we are looking at now, that the tide will turn, that they will actually, the oppressors are saying, we're going to kick you out of the land, but actually they are the ones who's going to be losing the land eventually to the people who they oppressed. And so I appreciate that there's this emphasis on, it isn't about this people or that people, it's about a certain attitude being rewarded, perseverance in truth and not oppressing, and then a certain attitude is being punished, which is being ungrateful and oppressing others. Because we it's very important to get this nuance, because otherwise I was thinking, like, it came to me that when people look at the prophets, one of the things that they accuse them of is that they want power, they want land. So it is not the aim. Neither power, nor land, nor authority is the aim for the prophet or their followers. It should be like, that should be very clear. It's not about saying go out and try to get land, try to get political authority or wealth. It's not the aim. It's not the purpose. But we do have a deep human desire to be safe, and we have a desire to see justice done. Look, when you look at what's going on in,
it's a desire and it's a need.
Yeah, it's a profound human need, and it's just, when you see, I mean, I don't want to go, maybe like from the news, when you look at what the devastation that's happened, all these people that have been left homeless and suffering in Syria and other places, we do have a deep human need to see them be compensated, and those who have caused this destruction to get their they get their end result there. Retribution. That's the basic human need. So in these passages where it says, the tide is going to turn, we have to keep these parts in mind, I feel, because otherwise we can quickly forget what is the purpose. The prophet is there not for the power. I remember, for instance, Musa alayhi salam, Moses, elsewhere he's accused of wanting authority. When he goes up to Pharaoh, that's one of the things Pharaoh accuses him with. He says, you just want land, you just want to take over, you want to be the ruler here. And he's like, no, I'm just telling you, just Tawheed, oneness of God. Don't pretend to be God and don't oppress people. but he insists and he wants to kill them, and then God makes a lesson out of them.
That's the way he thinks, and so he sees everything in his own mirror, Pharaoh. So he cannot imagine that someone is not after power.
Yeah, and it's not about power. Even when the Quran is promising reward in terms of land and security, and this is still not about the land or the
because it says we will make you inherit, we will settle you. So it's not like you go and win the land over. It says you stand, you believe in God alone, you worship God alone, and then we will put you there. You don't transgress anyone's right.
Mm-hmm.
And the result is that, not necessarily always in this world though, because in one of that it's also in paradise. Well, when the believer are entering paradise, they say that they say Alhamdulillah alladhi sadaqana wa'dahu wa awrathana al-arda. So they are, could be, because remember that paradise is related to the earth, but I don't want to go there. There are many ayats indicating that, because that's what matters really. Because in this world, even if we are given power and the land, well, good, but in itself it's not enough, because it is ephemeral and transient. And what matters is وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. What matters is what lasts, which is the next world. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's very important to remember that, because it's not easy to keep the balance. We say yes, tawakkaltu ala Allah, but our attitude is as if what's happening is the aggressor is doing something to me. It's between me and the aggressor, and I forgot totally about the divine will, the qadar. And as we always say, there are three aspects of anything happening. One looks to the other party, for instance, the transgressor, and one looks to me. And what am I going to? What's my stand towards this aggression? What am I going to do? I first have to remember the third one, which is it is happening by God's will. And so when I remember that, I can act as a muhsin, remembering that if it is happening by God's will, because nothing happens on its own, it is created, then it must be created with hikmah, with wisdom, with meaning. And therefore, it is an ayah. What is it telling me? And it is only when I get the message and I'm grounded in that wisdom of the muhsin that I start seeing the husn, the beauty and the divine names in the situation. And so I can take action from a place of wisdom, a place of grounded in faith, grounded in tawakkul, in relying on God, not in fear and anger, and because when it's coming from fear and anger, there is no fear of the aggressor, giving him power. Then either I will submit to him, or I will become an aggressor like him. And there is only one way to escape that vicious circle, is to get grounded in my connection to my Rabb, in that attitude of ihsan, and act afterwards, not react, but respond with wisdom, with justice, for the love and sake of peace, and for akhirah, not to not to be better than them or more powerful or something. That's not our business. Whether God will promise that he will give it in this world or in the next, that we don't know. And we don't know what is best for us in each situation anyways. And anyways, we will all leave this world. We will all die. The cause of our death is going to vary. How we lived and how we die and how we leave this world is what matters. Not that we die, because everyone will die. And the next ayah, which is ayah 15, says, وَاسْتَفْتَحُوا وَخَابَ كُلُّ جَبَّارٍ عَنِيدٍ. So 14 was, and most certainly we shall settle you in the land after them. This is for all those who stand in awe of my presence and stand in awe of my warnings. لِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامِي وَخَافَ وَعِيدٍ, which has been also understood as وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, the future belongs to the God conscious. And the next ayah end, it says, and they prayed that the truth be made to triumph, and every arrogant tyrant failed. وَاسْتَفْتَحُوا is translated in different ways because of the ambiguity of the word. Can mean different things. Can be understood as they prayed that the truth be made to triumph, or they asked God to decide to judge, or they sought victory, help and victory. And here they are the messengers, usually understood as the messengers asked for help and for victory and for decision. And every arrogant tyrant failed. Khaba. Actually, the primary meaning of fataha is to opened. He opened. Istaftaha is to seek to open something or to desire. He desired that it be opened. And so here it's istaftahu could be understood as judge between us, make a decision, and some understood it as victory or help, like the messengers prayed for help, for victory. And of course, that help is the decision, the fath between them and their people. As we know in Shu'aib alayhi salam, he prays in, again in Surah Al-A'raf, Surah 7, Ayah 89, he says, على الله توكلنا ربنا يفتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. It's an ayah that I love particularly. And you can see that again it starts with tawakkul. So على الله توكلنا, in God we place our trust, we make tawakkul. O our Rabb, lay open the truth between us and our people, for you are the best of all to lay open the truth. أنت خير الفاتحين. Actually, his people, in the previous ayah, to give you a context, his people who we are told who gloried in their arrogance, istakbaru, they said, most certainly, O Shu'aib, we shall expel you, again, the same threat, and your fellow believers from our land, unless you return to our way. It's exactly the same. لنخرجنك يا شعيب والذين آمنوا معك من قريتنا أو لتعودن في ملتنا. They said, we will expel you from our land unless you return to our ways, to our millah, to our creed. And Shu'aib answered, why, even though we abhor your ways, we hate your ways. And then the next ayah says, we should be guilty of blaspheming against God. Shu'aib is answering still, were we to return to your ways after God has saved us from them, it is not conceivable that we should return to them unless God, our Rabb, so wills. And all things does our sustainer embrace with his knowledge. وَسِعَ رَبُّنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. In God we place our trust, and this is على الله توكلنا ربنا افتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين. So you see that this is the prayer of the prophets when Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam, when he was threatened to be expelled from the land, he and his followers, the believers. And how did he answer? He said, we can't go back to your ways. And at the end, he said, Allahi tawakkalna. We trust in God, we rely on God alone. He is the one who will decide between us. He will open the truth between us. He will help us. So all those meanings come in that word, term of istiftah or fath. And in Surah Al-Anfal, istaftaha is used in the sense of asking for help and victory. In Surah Al-Anfal is Surah 8, ayah 19 and 20. Actually, it's in ayah 20, but to give a context, ayah 19, we are told, if you have been praying for victory, God speaking to the believers, victory has now indeed come unto you. And if you abstain, it will be for your own good. But if you revert to it, it means going into the old ways, we shall revoke our promise, and never will your community be of any avail to you. However great its numbers, for behold, God is only with those who believe. You see here? This is making it clear that it's not about, God is not with X or Y. God is with those who believe. Inna Allah ma'al mu'minin. So when there is Iman, God is there. When there is no Iman, He is not there. It means when you follow, it's like
He's there, but He's not going to support you.
Yes, that's why I said we shall revoke our promise, because it's like you say, I'm getting internet connection now. I paid for the internet. I should have the connection. But if I put it off, how do you say if I disconnect it, if I turn the Wi-Fi off, then I won't get it, and I can't. It's still here. It's me who is not open to getting it. It's given, but it's given to those who believe, those who are believers. It means when you believe, you are connected to your Rabb, to His Rahmah, and you benefit from it. When you are not, you are how to say? Oh, anyways,
you deprive yourself?
Depriving, yes. Sorry. For suddenly it came to in another language, and I was like, how do you say this in English? Depriving ourselves from God's rahmah. So it's up to us, and it's guaranteed, but it comes with belief. And hence, in ayah 20, we're told, O you who believe, pay heed unto God and His messenger, and do not turn away from Him now that you hear His message. So if you believe, I believe in God, I do whatever I want. No. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله ورسوله ولا تولوا عنه وأنتم تسمعون. So if you believe in God, then you follow the messenger of God. You follow the message. You live accordingly. You don't say, I understood, but I'm not. I want to connect, but I don't connect to my connection. When you open the network preferences, you see all kinds of networks. I want to connect to my neighbor. Connect if you can. There is one way. You want to connect to God, you have to follow His messenger, because His messenger brought His message. So it's very clear in many ways. It's when we read the Quran with that intention, subhanallah, mashallah, it shows the way very clearly. And so when his people accused him of being mad, for instance, in the case of Nuh alayhi salam, he sought help with God. So the Prophet did seek help and victory and from God. Remember, he says in Ayat al-Qamar, Surah al-Qamar, Surah 54, from Ayah 9 to 12, we are told before those, it's talking about people who deny the resurrection. Those Noah's people called it a lie, and they gave the lie to our servant, Nuh alayhi salam, and said he is mad, and he was repulsed, again he was expelled. Therefore he, meaning Nuh alayhi salam, called out to his Rabb, saying, فَدَعَا رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَغْلُوبٌ فَانْتَصِرْ, I am defeated, so come then to my help. This is, look how the Prophet shows how this is following the Prophet. You feel defeated? What do? You ask for help. I am defeated. Please, إني مغلوب فانتصر. So please come to my help. And so we cause the gates of heaven to open with water pouring down in torrents, and cause the earth to burst forth with springs, so that the waters met for a purpose preordained, and the flood is described. And so you can see that we say, how am I going to ask? I don't have any power. I don't have any money. I don't have anyone to help me. How? Because we have in our mind, for instance, power means an army, means weapons. That's what people think. Who said power is that? When Moses and his people went through the sea, and Pharaoh, who was extremely powerful in his area, was after them, it was the sea. The sea is at the command of its Rabb. So it is a powerful ally. Here the water, rain is a powerful ally, and it is at the command of our Rabb. And so when we say, but how is God going to help me? And so we either don't ask for help, or we don't believe it. We don't know who God is. We don't know him as our Rabb. We don't know him as Rabbul Alameen, the creator and controller and sustainer of all the heavens and earth and whatever is within them. Because the more we know him, the more there is no way we can say that. We just surrender and we just trust. He knows what he's doing. And so then, the more we trust in God, believe in him, trust him, and surrender to him, and rely on him, the more the fear of other things and other people and oppression and oppressors is going to be subdued, is going to be transformed into, there may be fear, but that fear won't be paralyzing. It is a fear that will fuel us, motivate us to take a stand. If there is a little bit of anger, it's an anger that will motivate us to question what's going on, to not accept oppression, for instance, not a fear that will paralyze us, or an anger that will control us. And so the disbelieving oppressors were destroyed in the flood, for instance, including Nuh alayhi salam's own son. And so in this ayah, in ayah 16 of Surah Ibrahim, we're told, and thus it is every arrogant tyrant failed. And how did they fail? In 15. And in 16, we are told how they failed. With hell awaiting him, and he shall be made to drink of the water of most bitter distress, من ورائه جهنم ويسقى من ماء صديد. So we were told that all the transgressors will have, what was the word? Will be doomed, will be destroyed. لنهلكن الظالمين, right? And here we are told in 15 واستفتحوا وخاب كل جبار عبيد من ورائه جهنم ويسقى من ماء صديد. So in 16 we are told how these arrogant tyrants will fail because hell is awaiting them, and they shall be made to drink of the water, of a water that is most bitter, with bitter distress. The water here, ma'in sadid, is actually putrid, festering water. Anything that we don't like, we are averse to, is sadid. Sadda is something like that. Anything that is repulsive, let's say. And that's why some commentators said that ma'in sadid here is an expression, is a metaphorical expression, meaning that can be understood a water, something that is like sadid, a water that is most bitter, like distressful. And it is a metaphor for the suffering and the frustration, the bitter frustration, which in the life to come especially awaits those who were blind to the truth and insisted on denying the truth despite so many clear evidences. So there is like how do you say a way that is an impasse? You know, so sometimes there's streets where you can't go through. This is the path of transgression, the path of oppression. The oppressor is a path that ends into hell.
Dead end?
A dead end, thank you. And the next, so hell, with hell, he will fail. Every tyrant will fail, with hell awaiting him, and he shall be made to drink the water of most bitter distress. And in 17, he gulps at it, as this water of bitter distress, he gulps at it constantly, and yet he can hardly swallow it down. And death comes at him from every side, but he does not die, for yet more severe and intense suffering lies ahead of him. يتجرعه ولا يكاد يسيغه ويأتيه الموت من كل مكان وما هو بميت ومن ورائه عذاب غليظ. And here يتجرع is like sipping or gulping gradually and continuously. And the other one, ولا يكاد يسيغه, يسيغ here is like he cannot make the drink flow through his throat. So he wants, but he can't. He can't make it has been understood as he cannot reconcile himself to this distressing suffering. He won't be able to swallow it, as we say. Can you imagine? You live all your life in vain, and then you end up in everything that you did will be against you. And deep down, everyone knows that now, because we all have the potential for becoming a Pharaoh-like aggressor, oppressor, or becoming like the prophet, the human potential. We have both, and we have the ability and the capacity to receive inspiration and guidance through the messages that the messengers bring to us through the scriptures and within the creation, the ayat in the scriptures and the ayat in the creation. And we also have that potential capacity to receive the insinuations and temptation of shaitan. And we have the choice. We can make a choice. And when we are mindful, then we ask ourselves what's going on, which is haqq and which is not, which is good for me and which is not. But when we are not, we don't follow what is good in the long term. We just follow our whims here and now without even thinking. And that's what my mindlessness, ghafla, is. And so we have the potential to grow the tree of Tuba, the tree of paradise, or the potential to grow the tree of Zaqum, the tree that represents hell, as Imam Badi'u Zaman says. So he says, both of them, you grow them and you decide. Well, when we grow the tree of paradise, we are intentionally deciding it. When we are doing the other one, when we are not living intentionally, we end up following the other path. When we are not worshiping God intentionally, we are worshiping false idols, we are worshiping our own whims. When we are not following the path of God, we are following the path of shaitan. So in ayah 18, we are told, this is then the parable of those who are bent on denying their sustainer. مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ أَعْمَالُهُم. All their works, meaning everything, even the good ones, are as ashes which the wind blows about fiercely on a stormy day. So if you have ashes out there and you have a storm, what is going to happen to the ashes? There will be nothing left. They cannot achieve any benefit whatever from all what they have worked for. And thus this, meaning their denial, is indeed the farthest one can go astray. مثل الذين كفروا بربهم أعمالهم كرماد اشتدت به الريح في يوم عاصف لا يقدرون مما كسبوا على شيء ذلك هو الضلال البعيد. So since this world is temporary, and since we have only the now, and the now is continually passing, anything that is focused on this world alone is doomed to vanish, like ashes being blown by the wind on a stormy day. So everything, whatever, they cannot achieve any benefit whatever from all what they may have worked for, because at the end there is nothing, because they didn't believe in akhirah. They were totally like an ostrich with the head in the sand, totally absorbed in the worldly, in the transient, and never thought about the meaning of this life and the purpose of being here in this life. And so they totally misappropriated what God gave us to use for akhirah. They misused it for vain aims. Vain because they are not lasting. And so now we understand why this denial is indeed the farthest one can go astray. It is the worst thing you could do to yourself, because all whatever you strive for, even the good things, will, at the end, there will be nothing in your hand. It will be like ashes. You have in your hand ashes, and there is this suddenly a storm and wind, and you have nothing in your hand. This is living without the awareness of akhirah. This is living for this world only. You can do the best everything you want, still there will be nothing. And of course, when there is only this world, there is also the great danger of transgressing and oppressing. Oppressing maybe oneself first, but also others. And that's why it is in this the farthest one can go astray. So this path of denial, which is often portrayed by the ego tells us, that part of us that listens to shaitan, to temptation, let's call it the ego part of us, it represents, it tells us the path of denial is the path of freedom. You do whatever you wish, as though God's law, following God's path, were a burden, as though it were restrictive, as though there was no joy or no happiness in following the path of God. So this path, the path of denial, leads to ruin, to destruction, to one's downfall. Whereas the path of God leads to akhirah, it leads to infinite mercy. Because God, who created us, who creates us right now, he is creating us and sustaining us, and knows what our true and lasting needs are. He is the one who sends us his messengers with his message and his guidance to follow and live by, in order to achieve freedom from worshipping false idols, freedom from working, spending all our life in order to satisfy the never-ending egoistic animal desires. And it is through following the divine guidance that we attain true freedom, the freedom of worshiping God alone and seeking help from him alone. Mean, if I seek help from God alone, it means I know that I don't need anything else. I use them in God's name. I don't need them. They cannot help me, but God helps me with them. So my connection and relationship with everything is going to change. And so we start living with the dignity of the human being that God blew his own spirit into him. And he created with the potential to know all the divine names and to be God's Khalifa. And this is the truth according to which God creates the heavens and the earth. And that's what we are told in the next ayah, ayah 14. Do you not see, meaning are you not aware that God has created the heavens and the earth in accordance with truth? He can, if he so wills, do away with you and bring forth a new creation. ألم ترى أن الله خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق إن يشأ يذهبكم ويأتي بخلق جديد وما ذلك على الله بعزيز. And that is not difficult for God. So he does create everything with haqq. These moral laws, spiritual laws, are also part of that, the creation. They are created with haqq. When you follow the path of God, it leads to inner peace and satisfaction and happiness in this world and the next. And when we follow the path of shaitan, the path of the ego, the path of oppression and transgression, it leads to everything is gone for nothing. There is no, since there is no akhirah in that path, there will be an akhirah, but an akhirah where what we believed in will become our truth. We believed there is nothing, no meaning. They will give us nothing, no meaning. Subhanallah, astaghfirullah. And it's interesting, I don't have time for that, but it says وَيَأْتِ بِخَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. So here خَلْقٍ جَدِيد, and if he wills, God can do away with you and bring forth a new creation. And this new creation includes new people. But actually, God is bringing new people all the time. It's just that we are not aware of it. We forget, because since I'm here, it feels like I'm here, I'll be here all the time. But if we stop and pause and think about it, there were so many other generations that lived here on the same land, maybe. And after us, many others will come. And it's like God does not need me to follow his path. It's me who needs it. He's not sending me the messengers and the message. And when I follow the messengers and God's message, I'm not doing God a favor, hasha. I'm doing myself a favor. And this we need to truly understand. Because then only can we be truly grateful. And as I always repeat, what we are truly, truly grateful for is the divine guidance, because it is like that light that brings out the meaning in everything and the goodness in everything and the aspect in everything that looks to God, that looks to Akhirah, that looks to the divine names, that looks to eternal beauty and perfection. And so things become not only like 2, 3, 4 dimensional, but many dimensional, inshallah. So it is that light of divine guidance that makes everything else truly sacred and truly valuable. And that's why we are grateful for everything, but even more for the divine guidance, inshallah. And in the next ayah 21, we are told, when all humankind appear before God, the weak will say unto those who had gloried in their arrogance, behold, we were your followers. Can you then relieve us of something of God's chastisement? And the others, the ones that gloried in their arrogance, will answer, if God would guide us, we would indeed have guided you. It means if God would show us the way to salvation, we would indeed guide you. It makes no difference now whether we grieve impatiently or endure with patience. There is no escape. وبرزوا لله جميعا فقال الضعفاء الذين استكبروا إنا كنا لكم تبعا فهل أنتم مغنون عنا من عذاب الله من شيء قالوا لو هدانا الله لهديناكم سواء علينا أجزعنا أم صبرنا ما لنا من محيص. And so when all humankind appear before God, the weak, meaning those who had sinned because of their moral weakness, because of their self-indulgence, and they called it, deep down they know, of course, they are indulging themselves, but they thought, or they fancied they were following the wisdom of some others, the others who are, whatever. If you follow fashion, they are the fashion makers. If you follow a thought, you're following someone who is a leader of thought, or whatever you call him. If you're following certain politics, you're following certain politicians. But you are not weighing it for yourself. Is this what I want to follow or not? Is this true or not? You're just following whatever is the dominant culture, the dominant values blindly. And so they ask those who are described in the sequence as having glorified in their arrogance, istakbaru, because they refuse to listen to God's ayat. Remember, istikbar is because someone feels that he doesn't need to listen to God's ayat. And God's ayat in the Quran, in the scripture, and in the creation. I don't need it, I know what it means. It's like science saying, I know what it means. I'm working it in the lab. So at this moment, they shall come forth in front of God all together, the oppressed ones who are the ignorant, who misled themselves and followed the not necessarily people. It could be they followed the dominant culture, the fashion, the whatever, the values, styles of life that were prevalent in their time. They address the oppressors and they say, behold, we were your followers. Can you then relieve us of some of God's punishment? And meaning we were your followers and we have fallen into these disasters because of your leadership. So are you ready to help us or bear part of our burden? And the others will answer, if God would guide us, we would indeed guide you. But now it's too late, meaning it's too late for repentance, for doing anything, for they say it makes no difference now whether we grieve impatiently or endure with patience. There is no escape, meaning it's all the same whether we cry, we rage, we endure, whatever we do now, there is no way out of our predicament. It's too late, and they know it. It means in this world, we have the capacity to know this. We can stay with this. We can imagine the situation and weigh it in our heart. Can we understand it? Everyone can understand if they have the intention, of course. So that's why all this description, it looks like description of punishment and hell and the situation of the disbelievers in hell, but it is compassion, because I better know the situation before I decide whether I want to go there or not. And the more the descriptive it is, you can see how the language is very descriptive, like the water trying to swallow it, but you can't, and how it is, the water is like putrefied, or even like pus, the word that's used, like it's very repulsive. It's very descriptive when you read the original. But because it is descriptive, it is also very helpful, because I cannot say it's nothing to do with me. As I read it, I feel in my head, like my face, I'm making like my face changes, and it has an impact on my emotions. And so if I stop and listen to it, what is this telling me? I say, I don't want to go there. There is everything in me, my feelings and everything says I don't like it. It's very repulsive. And so if I don't like it, then I should not go there at all. So I should not even follow from far. I don't want even to get close to that way. So now I am ready to say, okay, I want to go the other way. Can you please tell me again how to stay on track? So because I don't want to get off track. It's too ugly, too ugly, too painful, too unbearable. I cannot endure it. I cannot even endure the thought of it. And you can see it's healing as well, because if there is any part in me that from time to time says, yeah, but like, isn't that good to live like you want? There's no responsibility, no, like, and then, Shaitan says, this is the way to do it. But then you go back and, yes, but that you can, that freedom, that lightness, the true lightness, you will find it within the path of God. Go back and look well, you will find all that in the path of God, because outside that path, it's, if you think there is any freedom, any joy, any happiness, then you're just deluding yourself. And this is a reminder. This is where that path leads. Do not delude. Do not deceive yourself. And so we go back to lakum dinukum waliya din. Let's make the divide clear for myself, not for other people. As I said before, like we are always worshiping something. We are created worshippers. We love things. We love either things for themselves or for their creator. So there is no, I don't love anything, I don't like anything. No, you're a human being, you are attached to something, either to false idols or to God. So everyone has a deen, everyone has values, everyone has a way of life. Either it's based on truth and haqq or on whims. At the end, we either follow the path of God, as we've been told here again and again, or else we're following the path of what in the Quran is called Satan. And Satan's mission, we are told again and again, is to call away from the path of God. And that is why we need to focus on our direction by following the example of the prophets to protect ourselves from Satan's deceptions. And in Ayah 22, we are told, when everything will have been decided, Satan will say, behold, God made you a true promise, and I too held out promises to you, but they were false. I deceived you. I had no power over you except to call you, and you responded to my call. Therefore, do not blame me, but blame yourselves. I cannot help you, or I cannot respond your call, nor can you respond mine. And behold, I reject the way you associated partners with God before. Truly, grievous suffering awaits the transgressors. Again, grievous suffering awaits the transgressors. Meaning the transgressors are those who consciously transgress by responding to, let's say, Satan's call, but we will talk about what Satan is. So in this ayah we're told, وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ وَمَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ إِلَّا أَنْ دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي فلا تلوموني ولوموا أنفسكم ما أنا بمصرخكم وما أنتم بمصرخي. I will not answer. I cannot answer your cries, your call, and you cannot answer mine. إني كفرت بما أشركتموني من قبل إن الظالمين لهم عذاب أليم. So how do we follow Satan? There is that part of us, as I said before, that receives Satan's insinuations. And the commentators on the Quran, they said that Razi says the real shaitan al-asli, is his own, human being's own complex of desires and nafs, that nafs al-amara. For Satan makes it clear that it was only by means of insinuations that he was able to reach the sinner's soul. So it's something within us telling us something. And if we did not have this disposition, then we would not be able to respond to these insinuations. That's what the commentators said. So the Quranic expression shaitan is often used as a metaphor for every human. We have that impulse within us that is intrinsically always telling us, calling us to go away from morality, away from God's path, away from the fitrah, and therefore contrary to what is best for us. And Imam Nursi, rahimahullah, he says, everyone has experienced in himself that inner disposition that is situated in a corner of the heart. He called it al-lumma shaytaniyah. It is called in the Islamic tradition lumma shaytaniyah. He says it is in the heart, which is the means to this shaitan's suggestions and temptations. And it's like a tongue, like shaitan speaking to us at the promptings of a corrupted power of imagination. You see, all our abilities, all our potentials have their ibadat and their ubudiyah to be used. We can use them for ibadah, and we can use them haphazardly to our detriment. And so the power of imagination can be used for ibadah, for worship, and it can be used for following shaitan, which becomes like a small Satan and acts contrary to its owner's will and opposed to his desire. Sometimes you want to do something, but you find yourself not doing it or doing the opposite. Why? Because there is that part of us that is following those desires, but so what we need to have that balance, we need to weaken it. We need to strengthen the heart, that part that follows the divine guidance. We strengthen that with ibadah, we strengthen that with remembering God, and we weaken the other one by, as Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu says, it says something, you do the opposite. For me, it's like you become like, you find yourself, you become addicted to something. For me, it was a time chocolate. Oh no, it was ice cream. And alhamdulillah, now I don't even buy it, but there was a time. So I decided, no, like this is too much. You cannot even stop it. So do not buy it, because if I buy it, I can stop it. And there was a time in the beginning I did not buy it, and I find myself almost going out to buy it, almost going. Subhanallah. So istighfar, it's time for istighfar and taking action. Sometimes I used to tell some friends, because when you tell others, then you have witnesses, because otherwise you tell yourself, okay, I will start it next month. But when you tell others, now you have to commit. Until after a while, you're not addicted to that ice cream or that chocolate anymore. Subhanallah. So that's like weakening the power of that lumma shaytaniyah. The more we follow it, the more we strengthen it. And while we are weakening this, we need also to strengthen the opposite by following the ibadat, for instance. It's like in Ramadan, fasting is really great for that. It does strengthen the soul, the ruh, and the surrendering and the tawakkul, and it weakens that nafs that wants to follow shaitan. So shaitan carries on and says here, I cannot respond to your call, and just as you should not have in your lifetime responded to my call. And behold, he says, I reject the way you associated me with God. كَفَرْتُ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِ مِنْ قَبْلِ. And the implication is that Satan, while striving to lead people astray, never claims to be God's equal, or never denies God straight away. What he does, Satan tries to make people doing bad things or sinful things, he makes them looks good. وزين لهم الشيطان ما كانوا يعملون. He makes us, we know deep down that this is something harmful, this is something not good, but we rationalize it and we justify it and we make it seem good. And this can be done at an individual level, communal level, at all kinds of levels, and at different degrees as well. And so what Satan does, he persuades his followers that it is, for instance, morally justifiable to follow one's fancies and selfish desires. Sometimes something is truly selfish, because there are things that are debatable, truly selfish, without any restraint, but it's called freedom, enjoy yourself, having fun. This is how Shaitan calls it. Even if at the end that having fun will cost you your health, your life, your friends, But while doing this, Satan himself does not make a claim to equality with God, but the sinner, the one who follows, who submits to Satan's persuasion, temptation, attributes, if we are following Shaitan's temptation, it means we are attributing some power to Shaitan. That's why it becomes shirk. And while we are following the temptation, we are not following God's guidance. And it says, therefore don't blame me, because why he says, therefore do not blame me, but blame yourselves? Because he has no control. He says, I just called you, I didn't do anything. Oh, he says, I deceived you. I had no power over you except to call you, and you responded to my call. And this fact that Satan has no control over human beings is stated in the Quran. We are told, إِنَّ عِبَادِيَ لَيْسَ لَكَ عَلَيْهِمْ سُلْطَانٌ إِلَّا مَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. Truly, you shall have no power over my servants unless they are lost in error and follow you. It means when we follow Shaitan, which is, for me, it's to know this is good, because otherwise I would be scared. How about if I find myself following that path without realizing? No. It says you have no power over them unless they follow you. So we are making a choice, even we are not aware of it, because we've been making that choice again and again so many times that we think we cannot act in any other ways. And in Surah Al-Nahl, so that was Surah Al-Hijr, Surah 15, Ayah 42, and in Surah Al-Nahl, Surah 16, Ayah 99, we are told, behold, he has no power. Shaitan has no power over those who have believed and in the Rabb place their trust. Can you see? It's it's like an equation. It's giving us like a formula. إن الشيطان يعني ليس له سلطان على الذين آمنوا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. So if we believe, and truly believing means trusting and relying on our Rabb only. That's what the mark and the sign of belief. Then Shaitan will have no power over us. Alhamdulillah. It's good news. And that's why he is right. He says, well, do not blame me, blame yourselves. I just called and you came after me. You are the one who responded. And that's why he says, at the end, truly grievous suffering awaits the transgressors. So this ayah also ends with the suffering that is inherent in transgressing God's laws of creation, his laws of haqq, of truth. So subhanAllah, even that part of us that makes us believe that our wrongdoings are good, and justifies them and rationalize them, because deep down we know it's not true. On that day, it will turn its back on us. Even Shaitan will turn his back on us on that day, on the day of judgment. In Surah 8, Ayah 48, we are told, Satan made all their doing seem good to them, and said, no one can overcome you this day, for behold, I shall be your protector. But as soon as the two hosts came within sight of one another, he turned on his heels and said, behold, I'm not responsible for you. I see something that you do not see. Behold, I fear God, for God is severe in retribution. And also in Ayah 16 of Surah 59, we're told the like of what happens when Satan says unto unto human being, deny the truth. But as soon as he denies the truth, Satan says, behold, I'm not responsible for you. Behold, I fear God, the sustainer of all the worlds. كمثل الشيطان إذ قال للإنسان كفر فلما كفر قال إني بريء منك إني أخاف الله رب العالمين. So in the hereafter, the transgressors, even Shaitan will bear witness against us. He will say, okay, I have nothing to do with you. I just called you and you followed me. And what does it mean? If we are told this right now, it means deep down, if I stop and contemplate and really think about it, I can understand that when I am making excuses, we know deep down. الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة ولو ألقى معاذيره. He knows. People know what they are when they are making up excuses. Even children know, and they look at you like this when they are making up excuses. But sometimes we become addicted to something, and then we don't want to come back, and we start believing our lies, and we deceive ourselves. But on that day, even Shaitan will say, I fear God, Rabbul Alamin, the sustainer of all worlds. And we know in the Quran, it's the transgressors' own tongues will bear witness to what they've been speaking in the world. Their own hands, their own feet will bear witness to what deeds they have committed. In Surah An-Nur, for instance, Ayah 24. Their eyes and ears will bear witness to what they saw and heard. And even the skin, we are told, the skin will bear witness. And the human being will be bewildered, and you will ask, what's going on? Why are you bearing witness against me? And they will reply, أنطقنا الله الذي أنطق كل شيء. In Surah Al-Sajda, Surah 41, Ayah 20 to 22. But in Ayah 21, and they will ask their skins, why did you bear witness against us? And they will reply, God who gives speech, who gives meaningful speech to all things, has given speech to us. It means God who gives speech to all things, everything speaks. Everything is meaningful. It speaks in its own way. In its own way of being. That's what the ayat are. But those who do not follow the divine guidance, and therefore never learned to decipher the meaning of the ayat, don't know that everything speaks and everything is bringing messages to us all the time. Everything is a sign, is an ayah. And therefore they will be bewildered on that day, when everything will seem like bearing witness against them. Subhanallah. So he says, أنطقنا الله الذي أنطق كل شيء وهو خلقكم أول مرة وإليه ترجعون. And it is He who created you in the first instance, and unto Him you are returning. And that's the reality. We are in a state of returning. So the solution, so you can see from the beginning, we started with these people in Surah Al-Ra'd, these people who deny that the Prophet ﷺ is a prophet of God and receiving the messenger of God and receiving a message from God. And from the beginning, it's been about the messengers and following the messengers and how it is important, because if they are messengers, it means what makes them messengers is the message that they bring to us. And when we are not following the path of God, when we are not following His messengers and His guidance, then we are living according to other man-made rules. And after all creation is created with haqq, all creation leads to a certain aim. It is created in a way that when we live haphazardly, there is no satisfaction, there is no purpose, there is no meaning, there is no true lasting meaning, and the heart, it contradicts the fitra, the creation of human being. Together with this, so everything speaks and everything is pointing to akhirah, everything is pointing to the meaning of life, the purpose of life, everything is pointing to the Creator, to our Rabb. The messengers come, they explain everything in detail to us, how to decipher the signs and read them and live accordingly. They show us how to live on a day-to-day basis. They bring all the clear evidences. If after all this, these people, what they are doing, their people are insist on not listening, insist on, they say we're not convinced and all that, but that's all excuses. They have no intention to surrender to God, to live with the truth that we are created, that we are being sustained now, right now, that my life is not mine, it is a gift, that I don't know truly the meaning of this life, that I don't know the purpose of my life. And therefore, when I accept that reality, that is surrendering. And when I surrender, then I start listening. There is no surrender, there is no listening. So I cannot listen to the messengers, and I cannot benefit from the message they bring. And so these people are so obstinate and so arrogant, and they pretend as if they know when they don't know. And they persist in their ways, and when they don't like it, they actually start becoming aggressive and threaten the messengers. They threaten to expel them. They want them to come back to their own ways. It says, these people, this is what happens to them. So be careful. At the same time, we also see through the comparison and the contrast how big of a ni'mah, a blessing, this divine message that is brought to us through the messenger is. And the solution not to fall into that path that leads to suffering is to believe in God, follow the Prophet, believe in God and make tawakkul, trust in God alone. And we need to remember, dhikr is important because we need to remember this truth. And the remembrance is done in many different ways, not only saying with the tongue, but also living that way. And the ibadat, including the 5 pillars, are there to It's like the skin of the fruit, protecting the fruit so that the fruit can grow inside. So it protects it and it nourishes it at the same time. Because we want to remember, to not forget, and we want to also make tawakkul at a deeper and deeper level, inshallah, and be grateful. And the more we do that, the more we will be grateful to our Rabb. And that's the antidote to arrogance, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين حسبنا الله سيؤتينا الله من فضله ورسوله إنا إلى الله راغبون. Thank you. I stop here, inshallah. Next is the people of paradise.
Jazakumullah khair, Sister Yamina. Is there anybody else who wants to ask a question or make a comment at this time? Anything that struck you in today's session? Personally, for me, among the many things, one thing is this idea that, you know, you can't just go with the flow. Everybody's doing it, so let me just do it. Yes, but they are not gonna relieve from the burden. It's not like they are taking responsibility. You know, there's, you know, when you find yourself in certain situations, or just turn on a certain channel on TV, you see a kind of a stream. People are flowing towards living in a lifestyle where there is no God, nothing to be grateful for, as it were. There is no life beyond this world. It's all about this world, and you will never die. You're always see. That's kind of the world, as if you enter into. And yes, but when you die by yourself, and nobody comes to help you. Or when you face what you've betrayed in this life, they're not gonna, I mean, those are really very awakening.
Well, before death, when we grieve, when we're sad, you are sad on your own. People can tell you words, but they cannot share your grief with you. That's true.
True, and then the biggest grief is this world is passing. You know, other things you might be cheered up or distracted, but being distracted from this and without finding a genuine solution, it doesn't make any sense. But a part of us says that, you know, like everybody does it, yeah, but they're not gonna relieve your relieve the burden.
Not only it says
that way.
It says it's easy, but actually it's not easy at all when you look at it. It's actually it's like if you're never in this, let's say you need to make a living, but you never take any step to make a living. So it's easy to not do anything. Yes, it may be easy, but is it the best way? At the end of the day, you will pay hundreds of times more in this world. Even we have examples.
Yeah,
you will pay for it when you, for instance, you work as a laborer, and your friend who went to classes and got a more qualified position, they spend the same hours doing lighter works, but they are paid 10 times more than the laborer. And it seems like when I was doing nothing, it seemed like it's easy, but easy is not necessarily easy right now. But even right now, because you know the outcome, when you know the outcome, it spoils that ease right now, because you cannot truly enjoy it as if there is nothing else, because you know there will be a consequence, and the consequence is not worth it. but there is, and also we take it as easy because there is that part of us that thinks it's easy, but there is another part of us that finds ease and peace in taking responsibility and being aware of the consequences. So it's like deceiving ourselves.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. Anybody else who wants to share any comment or question? Okay, so in that case, we will...
Yeah, I have a
yes.
technical question. I want to re-listen to this lesson tonight. When do you post?
It's posted. It's being posted right now.
Okay, thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Isra.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina, and everybody else who joined us tonight. And let's keep each other in prayers. That's the real support. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel.
Ameen.